I actually wasn't originally scheduled to be here today. Sharon asked the smartest person she knew to come out and do the speech, and he unfortunately said no. And then she asked the funniest person she knew to come out and speak, and he said no. Then she asked the best public speaker she knew to come out and speak, and I personally didn't have the heart to tell her no 3 times. So, so I'm here today with you today. Now, all joking aside, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm humbled by this opportunity. Both of my parents were born in Haiti, and they came to America not knowing how to speak English. My mom was actually a babysitter in Highland Park, and she never dreamed of the day when her kids would be able to go to SMU. And both me and my sister were able to go here and graduate from here. I was actually able to come back and get my MBA, so I'm just honored to be here in front of TED. The idea that I have today that I think is worth spreading is something I learned from Olympic gold medal runner Michael Johnson. Back in 1996, he had a strategy that he used for running the 400-meter dash. And I want to share that strategy with you today because I think it will allow you to rethink, because I know it allowed me to rethink how I approach problems and difficulties. And so the first part of the strategy was to push. Can everybody say push? Push, all right. Now take your mind to a track. And when you go to a track, one time around the track, that's a 400-meter dash. And so you start the race on one of the curves. At the first part of that curve, he said it was important to push. Why it was so important to push was that because if you don't push out the blocks, you're going to be spending the rest of the race trying to make up for the mistakes you made at the beginning. And for me, that really resonated because when I was growing up, my parents always told us, when my dad came back and told me why he was so hard on us about education when we were young and make sure we did our homework when we got home and did some of the extracurricular things. And he said it was because when we got older, he knew he wouldn't be able to help us. And so he wanted to make sure that we pushed out the gates at the beginning. The major reason why I found people don't push out the blocks is because of fear. They have this fear of failure. They don't believe that they're going to be able to be successful. And whenever people tell me this, I always tell them the story of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. And now, I'm going to take a little break. I speak a lot in Portuguese. I use a lot of sports analogies. It's a term we affectionately use at the office. And so you might not like sports, and if you don't like sports, that's fine. There's going to be other speakers, and you can listen to them, and that'll be okay. I'm going to use sports. And so Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. I think Kobe Bryant is the best basketball player in the world. He's one of my favorite athletes. You might not like Kobe Bryant, and that's okay. You're a hater. I think there's some haterade in the back, and get some on your way out. But for me, he's the best player in the NBA. And on March 31st, 2012, he surpassed Michael Jordan in a surprising statistics. It wasn't assists, it wasn't most made shots, it wasn't rebounds, it was actually missed shots. Kobe Bryant has missed more shots, he now moved to number 5, and he has missed more shots than other than those 4 people, than any other person in the NBA. And he surpassed Michael Jordan in that fact. That seems crazy. How could one of the greatest basketball players in the world have missed so many shots? Well, it's because those failures are actually what prepared him for his success. And if he hadn't have failed, he wouldn't have been the player he was. But he knew something. Every time he failed, he knew that was an opportunity to either be defined by that failure or to be inspired by it. He could take that failure and feed it to his ego and use it for fuel. And that's what I encourage all of us to do. For me, that's something I've had to do. Every time I have a goal, and I know that it's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, and I fear failure, I have to remember I have to push through. You see this also in football. When Emmitt Smith, every single time he ran the football, his goal was to score the touchdown. But the overwhelming majority of the time, he failed at accomplishing his goal. But he still continued to push. It wouldn't have been okay for him to go to his coach and say, hey, there's these big guys trying to stop me. He had to push. He had to be successful. And so I encourage all of us on our journey to success, we need to push. The second piece was to pace. Can everybody say pace? Pace, all right. So this is the part of the race where it's the straightaway. And if you go too fast on this part of the race, you're not going to have enough energy to finish. But if you go too slow, you're not going to be in a position to win. What I found in life, what sets our pace more than anything else, is the friends that you keep. For the rest of your life, you will be judged by who your friends are. And so it's very important that you keep friends that are going to allow you to keep the pace. I take it one step further, and I believe each and every one of us should have a board of directors, a group of 3 to 5 people that we allow to speak into our lives. And just like a real board of directors, these people should be of different disciplines, different backgrounds, but people who will really tell you the truth about what's going on. One of the most influential people in history to me was Jesus Christ. And when I look at his life, he had 12 disciples that he was with the majority of the time. But even in that group of 12, he had 3, Peter, James, and John, who were the most influential in his life and were kind of his inner circle. And so it's important that you stay focused on that and have those people in your life that speak to you. But it's also important to remember, and you might not know too much about Jesus, but of that 12, there's one dude that really didn't have his back. And so in your group, you need to make sure that the people that you're allowing to have influence on you really have your back and they really are trying to establish your pace. The next word he had, and this was now the curve of the race, was position. Can everybody say position? Position. Now, this was an important part of the race because the winner of the race typically makes his move in this part of the race. And it's I guess to explain this point, I want to share a story of something that happened to me on June 2nd, 2011. It was a powerful day in my life, in the life of my family, in the life of my friends. It's a day I know I personally will never forget. The Dallas Mavericks were playing the Miami Heat. And like I said, there's going to be other speakers. If you don't like sport, don't worry. But they were playing Miami Heat, and the Mavericks were down by 15 points in the fourth quarter. And as I sat where I sat watching the TV, I had deja vu of what happened years before when we lost to the Heat, and I thought, oh no, it's about to happen again. And I thought we were in a position to lose. Fortunately, no one told the Mavericks. And Dirk decided to put on display, and they actually won the game. And not only that, they won the series. And the funny thing about sports is you see this play out a lot. The person who's winning at the beginning sometimes ends up losing. And the person who's losing at the beginning sometimes ends up winning. And the reason that happens is because it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And so wherever you are in life, I know for me, I know what it feels like to be down by 15 points. Forget 15, I remember one December, we were down $500,000. And I didn't know how we were going to be able to make it up as a company, but I knew we would. I knew we were still positioned for success. And some of you know what that feels like too. You know what it feels like to run the wrong way, to score for the wrong team, to throw an interception, to fumble the ball. But if that's you and you're here this morning, what I want to do is remind you that the race isn't over yet. There's still time left on the clock. And even though everyone around you might say you're positioned for failure, that doesn't have to be the case. You might have to work a little harder than you did, but you can still be in a position to succeed. The final P came as he viewed what he was looking at the end of the race. So now this is the final straightaway. Has anybody run the 400 before? 400 meter dash? So you know then that it feels like somebody hits you with a bat and you're trying to finish this race. And what he said in this moment where you're going through that, what he said you have to do is you have to pray. Because there's no way to teach you how to run that last part of the race. And me personally in my life, I actually do pray. But I think what Johnson was getting at was this idea of keeping the faith. And that no matter how bad things look or no matter where you are, you gotta push through and you gotta keep the faith and believe. My company, Group Excellence, started in my dorm room in Cockrell, McIntosh. Yeah, we got some people in Cockrell in the house. And I remember when we first started out, people saying that this was never going to work. It wasn't going to be successful. And what our vision was to do was to bring college kids to motivate and inspire students to achieve excellence. And we're going to bring them into the inner city and actually make a difference. And people didn't believe we were going to be able to be successful. My senior year, I remember it vividly. When we got our first big break, I would go from Fondren, then I would drive to Samuel High School, drive back to Dallas Hall, and did that almost every day my whole senior year. And I remember people saying, Carl, you've done all these things in life. Why are you focusing on education? Don't you want to do something that's going to make you successful, make you a lot of money, and do all these things? But I had a belief system that these kids need help. And if I follow my passion, I follow helping these kids, I'm going to be rewarded for that in the future. And so, although I feared that I might fail, and my goal was to go to law school, I decided to go on this path. And fortunately, I surrounded myself with a group of friends that I attribute most of my success to. And they set my pace whenever I saw myself falling down and messing up. They were the ones I could lean on. And then when we were positioned to failure, that time I talked about, when we were down $500,000, and I didn't see how we were going to be able to be successful, there was something in me that just believed that this could happen. It was something I learned a long time ago in a book that I read that said, do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you'll reap a reward if you do not give up. And so I followed that advice and was able to push through to the end, and we were able to be successful. And we're blessed to now have we've worked with over 30,000 students across the state of Texas. We have offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, all built behind the mission of motivating and inspiring students to achieve excellence. This can happen. It can happen when you rethink how problems work. So next time you face a problem or a challenge, I encourage you to push, pace, position, and pray. Thank you.